Let's settle in and talk about something really beautiful today. We're going to explore some deep ideas about how we can approach happiness, start to heal, and really understand the amazing power of community. And it all kicks off with a simple but pretty radical shift in how we see things.
We usually think of healing as some kind of fight, right? A battle we have to wage against our own pain. But what if the first step isn't to fight at all, but just to listen? This quote just nails the core idea we're diving into. Healing really begins the moment we stop running away from our suffering and instead turn toward it with a bit of kindness and gentle attention.
Okay, so this next part might sound a little weird at first, the art of suffering. I know, it sounds totally backward. Why on earth would we want to make an art out of something we're trying to get rid of? But here's the secret. When we learn how to suffer, we actually end up suffering a whole lot less.
So what does that actually look like? Well, this is not about glorifying pain, not at all. It's about transformation. Think about a lotus flower. For that beautiful flower to grow, it absolutely needs the mud. In the same way, we can learn to use the, mud in our own lives to grow something beautiful like joy and happiness. It's really about making good use of whatever life throws at us.
And this practice, it applies to everything. It works for what the Source calls these big blocks of suffering, that really deep-seated stuff, maybe even trauma passed down through our families. But it also works for the little miseries of daily life, the small frustrations, the daily annoyances. It's about learning to handle the whole spectrum with a little more grace. So where do we even begin? What's the starting line for this whole art of living thing? Well, it's incredibly simple, but it's also a total game changer. The very first and most important step is just to stop, to hit the brakes on the endless chatter in our minds and the constant forward motion of our lives.
We all have it, don't we? This little radio that's always on in our heads. The Source calls it non-stop thinking, or NST. It's just this constant broadcast of worries about things that already happened and anxieties about things that might happen. And this mental chatter, it just fills up all the space, and it stops us from actually experiencing the life that's happening right here, right now.
So how do we actually practice this? How do we turn the radio off? It really comes down to 3 simple steps. First, you just have to notice that the radio is even playing. A lot of the time, it's just background noise. Then you gently make the choice to stop the broadcast. You're not fighting it, you're just turning the volume down. And finally, you bring all of your attention back to your breath and your body, anchoring yourself in this present moment. And you know what? The effect is immediate. The source material is really clear about this. Healing isn't some destination way off in the future. The very moment you just decide to stop, you can feel this lightness. The healing starts right then and there. It's pretty amazing. But here's a really critical piece of the puzzle. We don't have to do this alone. In fact, trying to face all our stuff by ourselves is, well, it's incredibly hard. And this brings us to the powerful idea of community, or what's called a Saṅgha. I just love this quote. It's such a perfect metaphor for what it means to practice with other people. Just picture it. The difference between a single, tiny drop of water and a huge, powerful, flowing river. That difference, that's the power of doing this together. So what is a Saṅgha exactly? Well, it's basically a community of people who get together to support each other's practice. And they do it not just with kind words, but with their shared collective energy of mindfulness and peace. Let's go back to that metaphor. As a single drop, we can feel so small, so vulnerable, so alone, and just easily overwhelmed by whatever we're going through. But when we join a river, when we join a Saṅgha, we get carried along by this collective strength. We don't have to rely just on our own little bit of energy. We can actually borrow from the powerful flow of the whole group. And what's really fascinating is that the best gift a community like this offers isn't about what people do for you. It's not about favors or hard work. It's about the peaceful, mindful energy they create just by being together. That collective atmosphere is what makes real healing possible. So, we've talked about transforming pain, but that's only half the story. This practice is also about actively creating these little, real moments of joy in our day-to-day lives. This is the other side of the coin, the art of happiness. And when you look at the ingredients for joy, you realize how simple they are. Happiness isn't some big prize you have to go out and win. It's more like making a cup of tea. You can create a moment of joy with stuff you already have. Your own breath, a warm cup of tea, the feeling of the sun on your skin, or even just the simple act of walking.
And this right here is maybe the most empowering message of all. We don't have to go out and get anything new to be happy. The conditions to be happy are already here, all around us. The sun is shining, our body is breathing. Mindfulness, that's just the tool that helps us finally recognize them and really appreciate them. So when we put all these pieces together, suffering, stopping, community, and joy, we get to this really powerful conclusion. We tend to think of healing as a place we're trying to get to, right? A destination? But this whole way of thinking completely reframes that. Healing isn't the destination. It's the way we walk the path. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? There's no secret path to get to a state of being healed. Every mindful breath you take, every conscious step, every single moment you decide to stop and just come back to yourself, that is the act of healing. The way itself is the goal. And that brings us right back here, to this moment. This very moment is a wonder. It's the only place life is actually happening. So the only question left to ask is a pretty simple one. Are you available for it?